My parents sat me down on my 18th birthday and told me to leave immediately. They handed my car keys and entire college fund to my younger brother, William, claiming he was the family's only real hope. I walked out with nothing but a half-charged phone, vowing they would regret this choice. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss the twist coming up. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Have you ever had to start over from scratch? Let us know in the comments. The candles on the cake were still smoking when my father, Anthony, cleared his throat. It was a sound I knew well, the prelude to a decree, not a discussion. I was sitting at the head of the table, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the number 18 written in blue icing. It was supposed to be a celebration. It was supposed to be the day I finally felt like an adult, like an equal in this house. But the air in the dining room was heavy, suffocatingly still. My mother, Melody, wouldn't meet my eyes. She was busy smoothing the tablecloth, her fingers working nervously at a non-existent wrinkle near the silver platter. "Alice," Anthony said, his voice devoid of warmth. He didn't smile. He didn't reach out to touch my hand. "We need to talk about the future, your future and the family's future." I looked up, trying to force a smile. "Okay, Dad. I was actually going to ask if we could discuss the deposit for the dorms next week. The deadline is coming up for the university, and—" "There will be no dorms," he interrupted, his voice sharp. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys, my keys. The keys to the 2015 Honda Civic I had spent the last 2 summers working at a diner to buy, though the title was in his name for insurance purposes. He placed them on the table, but he didn't slide them toward me. He slid them toward my younger brother, William, who was sitting across from me, looking bored and picking at his cuticles. "Dad," I asked, my voice trembling slightly, "what are you doing? Those are my keys." "Not anymore," Anthony said, his tone final. "We've been crunching the numbers, Alice. The economy is tough. We have to be strategic with our resources. We have to bet on the horse that's going to win the race." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I don't understand. I got into the state university. I have a partial scholarship. I just need the college fund grandma left for us to cover the rest. Melody finally looked up, her expression pained but resolved. "Alice, honey, please try to understand. William is a boy. He's going to carry the family name. He needs the best start possible to ensure he can support a family one day. The state university is fine for you, but William has been accepted to prep school, and then he'll need a private university education to make the right connections. So you're giving him my college fund," I whispered, the room starting to spin. "We are reallocating the family assets to where they will yield the highest return," Anthony corrected coldly. "William needs the car to get to his internships. He needs the funds to maintain his social standing. You, Alice, you're a survivor. You'll figure something out. Women always do. You can find a husband or work your way through." "I can't work my way through if I can't even get there," I argued, my voice rising. "I need that car to get to work. I need that money for tuition." "You don't need the car because you won't be living here," Anthony said, dropping the final bomb. He gestured to the hallway where 2 black garbage bags were sitting by the door. I hadn't even noticed them when I walked in. "You're 18 now, legally an adult. We've done our duty. We've raised you, fed you, clothed you. Now it's time for you to make your own way." William let out a short, scoffing laugh. He picked up the car keys, twirling them on his finger. "Don't be dramatic, Alice. You always said you wanted independence. Here it is. Happy birthday." I looked at William, his smug grin, the way he looked at me like I was an employee being fired rather than his sister. Then I looked at my mother, the woman who had nursed me through fevers and braided my hair, now refusing to even look at me as she cut a slice of cake for William. "You're kicking me out?" I asked, tears finally spilling over. "Tonight, on my birthday." "It's the best time," Anthony said, standing up. "Start fresh, sink or swim. We believe you'll swim eventually. But we can't carry dead weight when William's future is at stake. He deserves the future, Alice, not you." The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis of a terminal illness. It wasn't just that they were choosing him, it was that they were actively discarding me to do it. They were stripping me for parts to build his life. I stood up, my legs shaking so hard I had to grip the table. "You're making a mistake," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You're betting everything on him, on William." "He's our son," Melody said softly, as if that explained everything. I walked to the door, grabbing the 2 garbage bags. They were light, mostly clothes. My books, my trophies, my sentimental items, they were all gone, presumably thrown out or packed away to make room for William's new study. I opened the front door and looked back at them one last time. They were already eating the cake. William was laughing at something Anthony said. They had already moved on. I stepped out into the cool evening air, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. I had no car, no money, no home, just 2 bags of old clothes and a heart that had just been shattered into a million pieces. The first hour was the hardest. I sat on the curb 3 blocks away from the house I had grown up in, just staring at the pavement. My phone, an old model with a cracked screen, showed 14% battery. A half-charged phone, that was my lifeline. I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over names. Uncle Ben. No, he always sided with Dad. My best friend, Sarah. Her parents were strict. They'd never let me crash there on a school night without calling my parents first, and I couldn't bear the humiliation of explaining that I'd been thrown out like trash. I dialed a local youth shelter, but the automated voice told me they were at capacity for the night. I tried a cheap motel, but when I checked my bank app, I realized Anthony had been thorough. The joint account we shared for emergencies had been drained. Balance, $0. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. It wasn't the abstract fear of the future. It was the immediate, physical fear of the present. Where would I pee? Where would I sleep? What would I eat tomorrow? I ended up walking 3 miles to a 24-hour laundromat. It was warm inside, and the attendant, an older woman with tired eyes, didn't say anything when I huddled in the corner chair with my bags, pretending to wait for a load to finish. I didn't sleep. I just watched the clothes spin in the dryers, round and round like the thoughts in my head. I replayed the scene at the dinner table 1,000 times. William deserves the future. Why? Because he was born male, because he was charming. William had never worked a day in his life. He cheated on his math tests. He lied about where he was on weekends. He crashed the first car they bought him, and they just bought him another one. I was the one with the straight A's. I was the one who worked weekends. I was the one who actually tried. And that's when the anger started to burn through the sadness. It started as a spark in my chest, hot and fierce. They thought they had broken me. They thought that by taking away the money and the roof, they had taken away my ability to succeed. Around 3:00 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from William. "Thanks for the room upgrade. Don't worry, I won't touch your poster of that boy band. Yet. Good luck in the real world, loser." I stared at the screen. He was awake, probably lying in my bed, on my sheets, texting me from the warmth of the house I had helped clean and maintain for years. I didn't reply. I turned the brightness down to save that last 4% of battery. The next morning, I washed my face in the laundromat bathroom and changed into a wrinkled button-down shirt from my bag. I had a job interview scheduled for later that week at a retail store, but I couldn't wait that long. I needed money immediately. I walked to the industrial district. I remembered seeing help wanted signs there when I drove by back when I had a car. I walked for hours, blisters forming on my heels, the sun beating down on my neck. I walked into a massive logistics warehouse. It was loud, smelling of diesel and cardboard. People were yelling, forklifts were beeping. It was a world away from the quiet, carpeted suburbs I came from. I found the office and asked to speak to a manager. The receptionist looked at my bags and my tired face with skepticism, but she buzzed someone. A woman came out. She was tall, wearing a high-visibility vest and steel-toed boots. Her name tag read Alexa. She looked me up and down, taking in the desperation I was trying so hard to hide. "I don't have a resume printed," I said, my voice raspy from dehydration. "But I'm a hard worker. I learn fast. I can lift 50 pounds. I'll work any shift." Alexa crossed her arms. "You look like you should be in school, kid. Run away from home." "Kicked out," I corrected, standing a little straighter. "Yesterday, on my birthday." She paused, her eyes softening just a fraction. She looked at the bags, then back at me. Can you pass a drug test? Yes. Can you start in 10 minutes? Yes. She nodded. It's minimum wage to start, night shift, loading docks. It's brutal work and most people quit after 3 days. You think you can handle it? I thought of William in his soft bed. I thought of Anthony's sneer. I don't quit, I said. Alexa smirked. We'll see. Put your bags in the break room locker. Welcome to hell, kid. As I walked toward the break room, my legs aching, I felt a strange sense of clarity. My parents had stripped me of everything they thought mattered: money, status, comfort. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten that by forcing me to survive on nothing, they were teaching me how to be unstoppable. They were giving me an education William would never get. The next 6 months were a blur of exhaustion and grit. I lived in a cheap rented room above a garage that I found on Craigslist, sharing a bathroom with 3 strangers. I ate instant noodles and walked to the warehouse in the rain. But while I was sweating on the loading dock, lifting boxes until my muscles screamed, I kept tabs on the life I had left behind. Small towns talk and social media screams. William was living the high life. My mother posted photos of him constantly. So proud of our son starting his journey at prep school. William with his new car. It was a BMW now. Apparently, my Honda wasn't good enough for him. I saw photos of them on vacation in Italy, a trip they had always told me we couldn't afford. They were burning through cash at an alarming rate. It became clear that without the burden of me, they had decided to go all in on William's image. They were investing in him like a volatile stock, convinced he was going to be a CEO or a politician by the time he was 25. But the cracks were showing, even from a distance. One night about a year after I left, I ran into an old neighbor, Mrs. Gable, at the grocery store. She looked at my high-vis vest and work boots with pity. Alice, oh dear, how are you? She asked, clutching her purse. I'm doing well, Mrs. Gable, I said, and I meant it. I had been promoted to shift lead. I was tired, but I had money in the bank that was mine. That's good, she hesitated. I saw your parents the other day. They seem stressed. Oh, I feigned ignorance. Well, you know William, she lowered her voice. He was expelled from that private school, wasn't he? Caught with something he shouldn't have had. Your father had to pay a lot of money to keep it off his record so he could get into the university. I felt a surge of dark satisfaction. I hadn't heard. And the car, Mrs. Gable tusked, totaled DUI from what the rumors say. But Anthony hired that expensive lawyer from the city. They're saying it was a mechanical failure. It must be costing them a fortune. I went home that night and sat on my second-hand mattress, staring at the ceiling. The picture was becoming clear. Anthony and Melody were enablers of the highest order. They weren't just supporting William, they were insulating him from reality. Every time he messed up, they threw money at the problem. My money, the family's money. They were creating a monster. Meanwhile, at the warehouse, I was learning a different kind of lesson. Alexa, my boss, had taken me under her wing. She was tough, she didn't accept excuses, and she demanded excellence, but she was fair. You have a mind for systems, Alice, she told me one night during a break. We were sitting on the loading dock, drinking bad coffee. You don't just move the boxes, you see where the bottleneck is before it happens. I just hate inefficiency, I said. It wastes time. That's why I'm promoting you to logistics coordinator, Alexa said. It's an office job, better pay, normal hours, but you have to take night classes. Get your degree in supply chain management. The company will pay for it. I could have cried. Thank you, Alexa, really. Don't thank me, she said, lighting a cigarette. Earn it, and Alice, whatever drives you, that anger I see in your eyes sometimes, use it. But don't let it burn you up. It's not just anger, I said, looking out at the city lights. It's insurance. Against what? Against ever being helpless again. While I was studying supply chains and optimization, William was studying how to open champagne bottles. My parents were leveraging their house, taking out loans, doing whatever it took to keep up the facade that William was a success. They were bleeding themselves dry to keep him afloat, convinced that any day now, His genius would be recognized. They didn't realize that the only thing they were building was a ticking time bomb, and I was the only one who could hear the countdown. The turning point came exactly 4 years after I had walked out that door. I was 22, and my life was unrecognizable from the girl who had sobbed in a laundromat. I wasn't just working at the warehouse anymore. I was running the region. Alexa had been right, I had a mind for systems. But she hadn't anticipated just how hungry I was. I devoured every textbook on logistics, every webinar on supply chain management, and every late-night shift where I could optimize a route. I didn't sleep. I strategically rested. By 21, I had earned my degree online while working full-time. By 22, I had caught the eye of the regional VP when I redesigned the entire state's distribution network, saving the company $3 million in fuel costs alone. They promoted me to Regional Operations Director. My office had a view of the city skyline. I had a salary that made my father's old income look like pocket change. I drove a sleek, reliable sedan that was fully paid for, and I lived in a modern apartment downtown with high ceilings and no roommates. But I never went back. I never called. I blocked their numbers on every new phone I bought. Then, the inevitable happened. It started with a LinkedIn notification. William Vance viewed your profile. I stared at the screen. My profile was locked down tight, visible only to connections or recruiters, but my name was unique enough in our small city. I felt a cold prickle on my neck. Why now? A week later, I got a call from an old friend of my mother's, Mrs. Gable again. She had tracked me down through a mutual acquaintance at the gym. Alice. Her voice was hushed, frantic. "Is that you?" "Mrs. Gable," I said, keeping my tone professional. "How did you get this number?" "Listen, honey, I know you don't talk to them, but things are bad, really bad. Your father, he had a heart attack last month. The stress." I felt a pang, sharp and sudden, but I squashed it down. "I'm sorry to hear that." "And the house. They're losing the house, Alice. The bank is foreclosing. They took out a second mortgage to pay for William's legal fees after that second DUI, and then, well, you know about the gambling, right?" "Gambling?" I repeated, my grip tightening on the phone. "William got into online poker. Badly, he lost. Everything. Your college fund was gone years ago, but he went through their retirement savings too. He told them he was investing in crypto." I almost laughed. It was tragic, pathetic, and entirely predictable. The golden child had tarnished everything he touched. "Why are you telling me this, Mrs. Gable?" "Because William is looking for a job," she whispered. "He's desperate. Anthony can't work anymore. Melody is taking shifts at the diner, can you imagine? But it's not enough. They need William to step up. And, well, I heard through the grapevine that he's applied to your company, Logistics Dynamics." I froze. "He doesn't know you work there, does he?" "No," I said slowly, a plan forming in my mind with terrifying clarity. "He thinks I'm dead or working at a gas station somewhere. That's what they tell people, right?" "Yes, they say you ran off with a boy and cut ties." "Perfect." I hung up and immediately logged into the company's hiring portal. I had administrative access. I searched for William Vance. There it was. An application for a junior logistics coordinator position. It was an entry-level management role, the kind that required a degree and strong leadership skills. I opened his resume. It was a masterpiece of fiction. Education, private university, degree pending, taking a sabbatical to focus on family business. Experience, operations manager at Vance Consulting, which was just my dad's defunct LLC. Skills, strategic planning, team leadership, financial management. I almost choked on my coffee. Financial management, the boy who gambled away his parents' retirement. I looked at the hiring manager listed for the position. It was Dave, a guy I had hired myself 6 months ago. I picked up the internal line. "Dave, it's Alice. I see you have an applicant named William Vance for the coordinator role." "Yeah, boss," Dave said, sounding surprised. "Resume looks interesting. A bit thin on actual details, but he went to a good school. Was thinking of bringing him in for a screening. Bring him in, I said, my voice steady. But don't interview him yourself. I'll take this one. You, for a junior role. He's a special case, I said. I want to see if he's a fit personally. Schedule him for Friday at 2:00 p.m. And Dave, don't put my name on the calendar invite. Just say regional director. Got it, Friday at 2. I hung up and swiveled my chair to look out at the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the skyline. My parents had bet on the wrong horse. They had sacrificed me to prop up a failure. And now, that failure was walking right into my trap. Friday arrived with a gray, drizzling sky. I dressed with meticulous care. A sharp navy blazer, tailored trousers, my hair pulled back in a severe, professional bun. I wore the expensive watch I had bought myself as a graduation present, the one that cost more than my first car. I sat in the main conference room, the one with the glass walls overlooking the warehouse floor. From here, you could see the workers moving pallets, the forklifts buzzing, the very place I had started, sweating and bleeding to build a life. At 1:55 p.m., the receptionist buzzed. Mr. Vance is here for his interview. Send him in, I said. The door opened and William walked in. He looked older. He had gained weight, his face puffy and pale. He was wearing a suit that was clearly expensive but ill-fitting, likely bought years ago when he was slimmer. He carried a leather portfolio, trying to project an air of confidence, but his eyes darted around the room nervously. He didn't look at me at first. He was too busy looking at the view, impressed by the office. Please have a seat, I said, keeping my back to him as I poured a glass of water. Thank you, he said, his voice smooth, practiced. I appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy a director must be. I turned around slowly. Hello, William. The silence that followed was absolute. He froze in mid-motion, his hand hovering over the chair. His eyes went wide, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He blinked as if trying to clear a hallucination. Alice, he whispered. The smugness evaporated instantly, replaced by sheer, unadulterated shock. It's Director Vance to you in this building, I said coolly, sitting down at the head of the table and gesturing to the seat opposite me. Sit down. He sat, but he looked like he was about to vomit. You work here, I thought. Mom said you were. Dead, in jail, flipping burgers. I raised an eyebrow. I'm sure she has many colorful theories. But no, William, I run this region, this entire facility. My responsibility. The trucks you see outside. My fleet. The profit margins your resume claims you understand. My results. He stared at me, struggling to reconcile the sister he had mocked with the powerful woman in front of him. Then, a flicker of his old arrogance returned. He leaned back, trying to regain control. Well, he chuckled nervously. This is unexpected, but hey, it's great. Family in high places, right? Look, Alice, things have been tough. Dad's sick. The market turned on us. I just need a foot in the door. Since you're the boss, we can skip the formalities, right? When do I start? I stared at him, marveling at the audacity. Skip the formalities. Come on, Al, he smiled, that charming, manipulative smile he used on Mom. We're family, water under the bridge. I know things were rough when you left, but we were kids. I need this job, the salary listed is. Well, it would really help out with the mortgage. Mom is worried sick. The mortgage, I repeated, on the house I was kicked out of. It's not like that, he said quickly. Look, I'm qualified. I went to prep school. I know people. I opened his resume folder on the table. Let's talk about your qualifications, William. It says here you were operations manager at Vance Consulting. Can you walk me through a specific supply chain challenge you solved there? He blinked. Well, it was mostly oversight, high-level strategy. Strategy, I nodded. Like redirecting capital, or perhaps resource allocation, as Dad used to say. He flinched, and here, I pointed to another line, financial management. Does that include the crypto investments, or the online poker losses that wiped out Dad's 401k? His face went white. How do you? I do my due diligence, William, I said, leaning forward. That's what a real manager does. We don't just hand out jobs because someone has the right last name. We check references. We check backgrounds. And yours, it's a disaster. You can't bring up personal stuff in an interview. He snapped, his voice rising. That's illegal. It's not personal when it speaks to your character and judgment, I said calmly. You claim to be a leader, but a leader protects their team. A leader sacrifices for the greater good. You've only ever sacrificed others to save yourself. You're just bitter, he spat, standing up. You're doing this to humiliate me. You think you're so special because you got some lucky break. You're just a warehouse girl in a suit. And you, I said softly, are a child in a man's costume. I'm leaving, he grabbed his portfolio. And I'm telling Mom and Dad what a bitch you've become. They were right about you. Sit down, William, I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it had the weight of authority I had earned over 4 years of commanding hundreds of men. He hesitated. I said, sit down, because if you walk out that door right now, I will mark your file as do not hire for this entire corporation and every subsidiary we own. And I will personally call every other logistics firm in the state, where I have very good friends, and tell them exactly why you aren't fit to sweep their floors, let alone manage their fleets. He sat down slowly, fear finally replacing the anger in his eyes. Good, I said. Now we're going to have a real interview. The real interview was a dissection. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I simply asked him standard, competency-based questions that any entry-level coordinator should be able to answer. Explain the difference between LTL and FTL shipping. He stared at me blankly. Long time something. Less than truckload versus full truckload, I corrected, making a note on my pad. Basic industry terminology. Next question. If a driver is delayed by weather in the Midwest and misses a delivery window for a JIT client, what is your first step? Call the client and apologize. He guessed. Wrong. You check the contingency carrier network for a relay, then you notify the client with a solution already in place. Apologies don't keep assembly lines running, William. Solutions do. For 20 minutes, I exposed his complete lack of knowledge. He sweated. He stammered. He tried to pivot back to soft skills and leadership potential, but I cut him off with hard data every time. You have no skills, I concluded, closing the folder. You have no experience. You have a degree you haven't finished and a resume full of lies. I can learn, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Alice, please, I really need this. The bank is going to take the house in 2 months. Mom is, she's crying every night. Dad's heart meds are expensive. I messed up, okay? I know I messed up, but they're your parents too. Are they? I asked. Because the last time I saw them, they told me I wasn't their family anymore. They told me you were the future. They were wrong, he blurted out. They know it now, Dad talks about you sometimes. He wonders where you are. He wonders if I have money he can borrow, I corrected. No, well, maybe, he looked down, defeated. But Alice, you have to help us. You can't just let them end up on the street. You're rich now. You can fix this. I am not rich because of magic, William. I am successful because I worked while you played. And now, you want me to use the resources I earned to bail out the people who tried to ensure I'd have nothing. It's family, he cried. Family helps each other. Family doesn't steal their daughter's future to buy their son a sports car, I said coldly. Family doesn't kick an 18-year-old out on her birthday. He slumped in his chair, realizing that emotional manipulation wasn't going to work. He looked small, pathetic. So that's it, he asked. You're just going to let us drown. No, I said, standing up. I'm going to give you a chance, a real chance, the kind of chance I had. I walked over to the window and looked down at the warehouse floor. I won't hire you as a coordinator, William. You're not qualified, and I won't give you money. I turned back to him. But we are hiring for the night shift on the loading dock. It's minimum wage, it's physical labor. You'll be lifting 50-pound boxes for 8 hours a night. You'll come home aching, you'll blister, you'll want to quit every single hour. He looked at me in horror. You want me to represent the family, moving boxes. I want you to learn what work actually is, I said. If you take the job and you survive for 90 days without being late, without complaining, and without calling in sick, then, and only then, will I consider you for an entry-level clerk position. And I'll advance you a small loan to keep the foreclosure off the house for 1 month. You can't be serious, he whispered. That's humiliating. It's honest work, I said. It's the work that paid for this suit. It's the work that built this company. If it's too humiliating for you, then you're welcome to leave. But don't expect a dime from me otherwise. He looked at the door, he looked at me, he looked at his soft hands. I can't do that, he muttered. My back, I have a bad back. Of course you do, I said, not surprised in the least. Then the interview is over. Goodbye, William. He stood up, his face red with a mix of shame and fury. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me beg. I'm not enjoying it, I said honestly. It's actually incredibly sad. I'm just finally seeing things clearly. You weren't born a failure, William. They made you one, and you let them. He stormed out of the room, slamming the glass door behind him so hard it rattled. I watched him go, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. I hadn't saved him. I hadn't destroyed him. I had simply held up a mirror. But I knew this wasn't over. William would go home and spin a story. He would tell them I was a monster. And that meant the real confrontation, the one with Anthony and Melody, was just beginning. I picked up my phone and called security. This is Director Vance. Please flag William Vance at the front desk. He is not to be admitted to the building again without my direct authorization. Understood, Ms. Vance. I hung up. Then I dialed another number, a lawyer I had retained for estate planning. This is Alice, I said when he answered. It's time to talk about that foreclosure you mentioned on the Vance property. I want to buy the debt. 2 weeks later, the foreclosure notice arrived at my parents' house. Or rather, the notice that I now own the debt arrived. I didn't send it by mail. I delivered it in person. I pulled up to the house in my sleek charcoal sedan. The lawn was overgrown, the paint peeling on the shutters. It looked smaller than I remembered, shrunken by neglect and the weight of bad decisions. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady on the wheel. I wasn't the scared teenager with garbage bags anymore. I was the creditor. I walked up the driveway, noticing the oil stains where William's BMW used to park. I rang the doorbell. It took a long time for someone to answer. When the door finally creaked open, it was Melody. She looked frail, her hair gray and unkempt, wearing a faded bathrobe at 2:00 p.m. Her eyes widened when she saw me. For a moment, she just stared as if seeing a ghost. Then a flicker of hopey, desperate, pathetic hope lit up her face. Alice, she breathed. Oh, thank God. William told us you were successful. He said you were a director. Oh, honey, come in, come in. She tried to hug me, but I took a step back. The rejection hit her like a physical blow. I'm not here for a reunion, Melody, I said, my voice cool and professional. Is Anthony here? He's in the den, she stammered, wringing her hands. He's not well, Alice, the stress, please be gentle. I walked past her into the house. It smelled of stale coffee and despair. The furniture was the same, but worn. The photos on the wall were still mostly of William, winning a debate trophy, which I knew he hadn't prepared for, graduating middle school, posing with his first car. There was not a single picture of me. Anthony was sitting in his recliner, watching daytime TV. He looked older, heavier, his face slack. He turned when I entered, his eyes narrowing in confusion. Alice, he rasped. What are you doing here? Did you come to apologize? I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. No, Anthony, I said, standing in the center of the room. I came to discuss your living arrangements. What? He frowned. This is my house. You don't have any right. Actually, I interrupted, pulling a thick envelope from my bag. I do. I bought your mortgage from the bank last week. You're 3 months behind. Technically, you're squatting in my house. The silence in the room was deafening. Melody gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Anthony's face went from pale to a dangerous shade of red. You bought the debt, he sputtered. With what money? You're a girl. You don't have that kind of capital. I'm the regional director of a multi-million-dollar logistics firm, I said calmly. I make more in a month than you made in a year at your peak. And unlike you, I invest wisely. I don't gamble my future on a losing horse. Just then, William slouched into the room, wearing sweatpants and looking hungover. He froze when he saw me. "She's lying," he shouted, pointing a shaking finger. "She's just trying to scare you. She's a glorified secretary. She humiliated me at her office." "I offered you a job, William," I countered, my voice cutting through his hysteria. "A job you were too proud to take. A job that would have paid your bills. Instead, you came home and lied to them again." I turned back to my parents. "Here are the terms," I said, tossing the envelope onto the coffee table. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises. I'm selling the house. The proceeds will cover the debt, the legal fees, and the renovation costs." "You can't do this," Melody cried, grabbing Anthony's arm. "We're your parents. We raised you." "You kicked me out on my 18th birthday," I said, my voice finally rising, the anger I had held for 4 years pouring out. "You gave him my college fund. You gave him my car. You told me I was nothing. You said, 'William deserves the future.' Well, look around you. This is the future you built. A foreclosed house, a bankrupt retirement, and a son who can't even get a job moving boxes because he thinks he's too good for it." We did what we thought was best. Anthony yelled, struggling to stand up. "A son is different. He carries the name." "And look where that name got you," I said, gesturing to William, who was cowering by the door. "He's a thief, a liar, and a failure. And it's your fault. You never let him fail, so he never learned how to succeed. You crippled him with your love." Anthony sank back into his chair, defeated. The truth, harsh and undeniable, seemed to finally penetrate his denial. He looked at William, really looked at him, and saw the weakness, the entitlement, the fear. Then he looked at me, the suit, the confidence, the power. I made a mistake," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Yes," I said, "you did, a very expensive one." "Alice, please," Melody begged, tears streaming down her face. "Don't put us on the street. We have nowhere to go." I looked at them. I looked at the people who had birthed me, who were supposed to protect me, and who had instead thrown me to the wolves. Part of me wanted to crush them, to let them feel the cold pavement I had felt that first night. But looking at their pathetic state, I realized something. I had already won. Destroying them wouldn't make me any more successful. It wouldn't heal the past. "I'm not you," I said softly. "I won't leave you with nothing." "Here is the deal," I continued, my voice steady. "I will sell this house. With the remaining equity, if there is any after I'm repaid, I will put a down payment on a small, 2-bedroom apartment for you and Melody. The deed will be in my name. You will pay me rent at cost. No profit for me, but no free ride for you." Melody sobbed with relief, clutching Anthony's hand. Thank you, Alice." "And William?" Anthony asked, looking at his son. I turned to William. "William is 22. He is an adult. He is not part of this deal." "What?" William shrieked. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You have 30 days, I said. "Find a job, find an apartment, or don't. That's up to you. But you are not living with them on my dime." "They enabled you for too long. I won't." "You can't separate us," Melody cried. "He's just a boy." "He's a man," I corrected. "And until he learns to stand on his own 2 feet, he will never be anything else. If he moves in with you, I evict all 3 of you. Do you understand?" Melody looked at William, then at the roof over her head that I was offering. She nodded slowly. "We understand," she whispered. I turned to leave. At the door, I paused. "By the way," I said, looking back at them, "the name on the deed will be Vance, but it will be Alice Vance, just so there's no confusion about whose name carries the legacy now." I walked out to my car. The sun was shining. I felt lighter than I had in years. In the months that followed, I sold the house. It barely covered the debts, but I kept my word. I bought a small condo for my parents. They live quietly now. Anthony's health stabilized, though he never fully recovered his pride. Melody calls me sometimes, tentative and polite. We aren't close, we never will be again, but the bleeding has stopped. William hit rock bottom. He couchsurfed for a while, tried to scam a few friends, and eventually ended up working construction in another state. Last I heard, he was actually holding down a job, sweating for a paycheck. Maybe there's hope for him yet. As for me, I was promoted again last week, VP of Operations. I have a team of 50 people. I have a beautiful home that is entirely mine. And every year on my birthday, I buy myself a cake. I light the candles, I make a wish, and I smile. Because I know that the best revenge isn't hatred. It's living a life so full, so successful, and so independent that their absence doesn't even leave a shadow. They tried to break me to build him. Instead, they forged me into steel. And steel doesn't break.